don't think we have much to kind of say on that particular topic. GIS office is going to go through their usual round, through our usual round of kind of updates. I will be filling in for Ashley, who is on vacation this week. And then Carl is going to go into kind of a discussion and explanation of some of the work that he's put into the annual update of the strategic plan. And then we're going to be also talking about the what is that called? The publishing guidelines document that we sent you all. We have some questions and would like some guidance from the council members on that particular topic as well. So with that, we'll get started, and we'll go through the list here of council members and kind of introduce yourselves in this order as a way of taking attendance. I do know there are a couple of people that were unable to join today. So I'll start. I'm Alfredo Herrera, the GIS Geographic Information Officer. Are you able to unmute yourself?
I can now unmute myself.
Excellent.
Great. I'm Scott Call from OPM. I'm here, present.
Hello, I'm Stuart Deland from CTD here.
Liz Congo from Connecticut DOT.
Gary Archambault from DPH.
Sorry about that. Dan Achaya from DESPE.
Eric Snowden, Capital Region Council of Governments.
Mark Hoover is absent, so John, if you're here. I guess you're up, Tracy.
Tracy DeGrazia from the town of East Hartford.
Emily Wilson, Yukon.
Ethan Perry from United Illuminating.
And Meg McGaffin is also absent today. So thank you all for joining. We will kind of begin here. Like I said, thank you for kind of working around our kind of challenging schedules in last month and kind of convening slightly out of sequence. One of the things that we are going to try to do is, and we've already kind of sent out the placeholders for the upcoming meetings, is we've tried to kind of maintain a kind of a more regular cadence from this point out. Hopefully ending with the last one in the end of October. That way we have our kind of traditional kind of natural gap that happens in November and December, because it kind of falls on holidays and it's like hard to get anybody to kind of meet in those time periods. So if you have any questions or issues with those dates that were sent out by Andre, please let us know as soon as you can. And then beyond that, we will kind of proceed with the rest of the meeting. As far as council administration, I don't think we have any new groups or kind of rules to kind of set up for ourselves unless anybody has any suggestions. One minor change that we did make with this is we are going to have the public comment period at the end of the meeting instead of the beginning. That way people have an opportunity to hear what was said and then can comment on anything that they choose. So with all of that, we will dive right into the priority topics and working group updates. And the first step is broadband mapping. So I will kind of start here. We do have this map that is kind of like the number of census, the number of ISPs per census block throughout the state. And it's the difference between 2022 and 2024. I think this is, oops, sorry. This is meant to be kind of like an animated GIF. Not sure why it's not kind of doing its thing, but it one of the nice things about this map is it does show a lot less of the light blue areas that are basically only one provider, and much more of the blue, medium and dark blues with like 2, 3, and 4 providers kind of filling in the map. So we are kind of making progress overall, you know, between our mapping efforts and Deep's in BETP's efforts and kind of promoting development and increasing broadband. So like we're kind of working hand in hand and being able to inform the grant making and project decision process as well as track the results is like really, really important and part of why the GIS office got created. So from that standpoint, it is very satisfying to kind of see the this kind of progress that we've made on that kind of topic. So with the broadband mapping in general and where we are at the moment. So in the last meeting, we mentioned that we were going to start doing the ISP collection again in April. We just finished, or rather Ashley just finished meeting individually with all of the ISPs to make sure that all the expectations were the same, have some conversations about potential new additional data sets. We decided to hold off on the additional data sets just because we wanted to make sure that it was they were comfortable with it and we were comfortable with it, and we kind of coordinated with BETP to make sure that what was being asked had enough of a reason to make that ask. So we're going to kind of hold off on the additional data for this particular collection. So we are proceeding as we have for the last little bit in kind of collecting data from the internet service providers that is using the FCC schema to kind of collect all that information. So the official set of instructions and the open collection period is open right now as of April 8th. And that would constitute data as of December 31st of 2024. Just as a refresher, we do collect this data biannually. So usually here now in the spring with the data from last December, and then again in kind of the fall using the data from the June filing to the FCC. So we basically just get the data at about the same time that they submit it to the FCC. But because we are only looking at Connecticut, we can parse it and a lot faster than the FCC can, and just kind of like look at it a little bit more deeply. Therefore, we have just as good, if not better, maps, and we have more early access to those maps than would otherwise be available. So this is like great news for our partners that do advocacy work and also funding work. Apart from the collection, we are working on updating the broadband hub. It's been a little while since we kind of created that site, and now Ashley's kind of taking it in her own new direction. So we're updating several applications, exploring other ways to look at the broadband data. And so once again, if you have any ideas or any suggestions about the data that you see on there or want to see something new, please just feel free to let me or Ashley know. Beyond that, the next topic is parcel and CAM improvement grants. So with these, we have completed them. As we know, we've received all of the work plans from the COGS. We've reviewed them and given them the go-ahead to kind of begin work in the contracting process. So as you can see there, those are kind of the criteria that we kind of gave them as far as what they have to improve. And we've been working very closely with all the COG representatives to make sure that they do what they need to do to kind of spend the money and improve the data. We've been also helping them with the analyses to make sure that what they're seeing is what we're seeing, and kind of like talking through any of the differences that come up along the way. And that is, I believe, it for that. Does anybody have any questions on either of those topics?
Not really the question, but just
Sure.
a little bit about what we talked about yesterday, just sort of reiterating that all of this data has the suppressed records taken out, and that there are multiple steps in there. So I know if anyone on the call is worried about that, there are things in place to make sure that's all good.
For sure. We will talk about a little bit more about that. Leah is going to dig into this year's collection a little bit more. But just to kind of give a little bit more explanation as to what Liz is talking about, there were some concerns from some municipalities and vendors about the status of the suppressed records. Judges, police officers, corrections officers, those sorts of things. They are a protected class in the data set, and they are not meant to be revealed who the ownership is. So one of the things that is it's supposed to be baked into the the reports that the various CAMA vendors produce is that these records are meant to be suppressed as if they were suppressing them for their own needs. We were confident that that was happening, but we wanted to be sure, which is why last year we asked for the suppression field, the flag field that determines whether a record is meant to be suppressed. So what we wanted to do is we just wanted to act as a double check. And we found that indeed there were some exports that were not suppressing when they should have. So, we were acting as kind of like that backup to make sure that we didn't accidentally release any private or sensitive data that is meant to be protected. So if that is a concern, feel free to talk to us more about it, and we can talk to you about all of the ways in which we kind of make sure that that data is kept safe. And with that, I will pass it off to Leah to talk about the parcel and CAMA updates. Unless anybody else has any questions on either of those other two previous topics.
I have something I want to talk to you about my
Sure.
hometown, but I'll talk to you separately.
Sounds good.
I'll message you on Monday
Okay.
about it.
That's fine. Anything else? All right, go ahead, Leah.
I don't have control, so we can move on to the next slide.
Sure.
So this year we have implemented 2 changes. This year we're focused more so on the parcel side, and we have updated the domain for the parcel type that's available on the CAMA parcel page, DAPA page. This includes standard parcels, right-of-ways, water, condo main, and flag. And we're hoping that these values, with these values, users won't have to make such a large query statement to filter out specific fields. And the major change for this year is we are asking for the data to be provided to us via website. So we launched a new submission website, which I will walk through, and I'm going to go over how to sign in, the 2 surveys that are there, and all the dashboards available and their functionality. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see this
Yes.
page? Okay, so this is our new submission hub site. So if you do not have a login or you have an AGOL login, you can fill out this survey where you can say, yes, you have an account. If you say yes, we can put you into the system. You have login access. And if not, this survey will send an email to your COG representative if you haven't already contacted them, and then they will get you access to this website. Once you have access, you would just sign in, and when you sign in, you have to be sure to click into the not a member of this organization, or you will not gain access to the website. So once you're signed in, you can click into the, sorry, I'm gonna go back. You can click into the parcel tab, and it will bring you to this website. Here we have directions. It's going to explain everything that I am going to say today, unless you want to reference. The first survey is the submission survey. So you would just pick a random town and it will pre-populate. Sorry. It will pre-populate. And then on the bottom, you have the ability to either say none, which means you're just updating metadata. You can submit both parcel and CAMA data or just parcel and CAMA data. That will update this dashboard, which is gives you basic metrics of what was submitted for what town. You can filter much like last year's dashboard. And then this dashboard is for the COGS to review data. So once you do submit data, you have the ability to look at the same metrics as the public dashboard above, but you have this panel which COGS can download the data. So you would just click it and it would download right there. After that, the COGS will go into this survey where they will select the COG that they're in and the towns that they reviewed. And once that's done, it will populate and keep track of the amount in this panel right here. Also, there's resources to the guidance page, the open data portal, the geodata portal. There's also instructions for COGS and parcel viewer and all of our data for this year, from last year. I'm muted.
I was muted. Sorry about that. So to kind of take a step back a little bit on that and just kind of talk about kind of the why is, we were receiving files in a number of different ways, and we wanted to have something a little bit more centralized than just like email or, OneDrive folders and things like that, and have the ability to kind of maybe slightly more programmatically pull the data and have it in a more centralized place, and have people be able to kind of verify it, that it was submitted, or oh, I forgot to email it. No, like, we wanted to have people to have a place to actually kind of like, I'm logged in here, I'm going to submit the data, upload it in the same form, and then we have the ability to download it. When we download it, we just use a Python script and kind of download it and parse it and do all the things. But like the cogs can go through and town by town, download the data, verify that it came in if they did not submit it themselves, and kind of check it. We just wanted to kind of facilitate the process of transmitting the data, ostensibly as per the statute to the cogs. We're just kind of providing the framework for everybody to do that with, and then eventually they do kind of send us that data so that we can do the data integration and create the seamless statewide data set. So this was just kind of our attempt to kind of streamline the process and make it a little bit easier, and more centralized for everyone in a way that kind of makes the process less burdensome. For those of you that are involved in the process, we are definitely speaking to all of you. If anyone that has further questions or wants to see it a little bit more up close, we are happy to kind of show you what we've been doing. If you have ideas to extend this process for other topics, we are also open to that, because one of the things that we wanted to do is, that's why it's like a landing page and then the parcels page. In some ideal future state, we will have other data sets, like say addresses or culverts or other things like that we add, and each one will have its own page and its own specific process that we kind of follow to make sure that the data gets transmitted to wherever it needs to go. In most cases, it will be to us, or sometimes it'll be to the COGS or some other entity or even another agency. We just tried to create something that was kind of flexible and modular enough that we could kind of make it so that people can kind of submit the data without too much hassle. So with that, does anybody have any questions on the parcel and CAM collection process for this year and the platform that we've created for it? All right, well, moving right along. So I think we are now going to transition to Carl so that he can talk about the imagery and LiDAR updates.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. This will be two sections. First, I'll talk a very quick review of some of the data updates, and then we'll move into the annual update to the strategic plan. Regarding the imagery and LiDAR data collection, we received all the data. We have one outstanding downstream product that we're working on, which is this IC data collection. It's bounced around our legal departments for several weeks. We think we're finally in the home stretch. Let's hope so. And then we'll have good news on the next in the next cycle. Buildings were received where they're published. We're calling them beta because during this IC impervious cover data creation process, they'll be reviewed, and we'll talk more about that later. We also have the 3D buildings available on a download portal, and we're working out a way to have them viewable as a service. A couple other items. Durga Joshi, who was our intern last fall, has finished the vegetation data sets These are pretty impressive statewide raster data sets that will complement nicely the new impervious cover data that we'll have. We will be working on a web service for that as well in the coming months. And then finally, Leah and I are working together on putting together a 1 foot contour service. We have a 5 foot one that's running. The 1 foot contour service is a little more robust because it's a lot of data and millions of points, but we're getting close on that as well. And I'm hoping that we will have good news for that shortly. Next slide, please. We've been working also on getting, excuse me, the data distributed out to the public, and we have some good news this week where the DEM is now available through NOAA. They're also going to be distributing LiDAR as well, and then we're working on community maps distribution that's also in progress. Next slide, please. There's an updated imagery products or hub site available, and that's linked up to Emily Wilson's CT Eco data set. So this is just an informational page with some nice sliders and some other stuff that Sarah Hurley put together. So that's a new informational page. We'll also have one for elevation later in the year as well. Next, please.
Yeah, hang on. I want to pause right there before you move on to the strategic plan. Can I put Emily on the spot for just a second to talk about the download tool and the recent change to the bulk download stuff that we worked out recently? Because I think that's an important thing for people to kind of know is there now.
Sure. We didn't make any changes to the tool, but we did identify a very helpful free online piece of software that we can all use to bulk download. So from the download tool, if you export a CSV that has a long list of files that you want to download, you can easily add that list to this download tool and automatically, systematically go through them. So that's something that's super useful for people that want to download all the tiles for a town or a larger area. There is a help page on CT Eco that after this, I'll get the link. I don't have it right in front of me. But yeah, and if others are using other methods to do multiple file downloads that would be helpful to share, please let me know. We can easily add that information to the help page.
Emily, also correct me if I'm wrong. You did put a tile search.
Right.
Tool is a little strong, but additional capability in your download package.
Yeah, that's true. So the search box now, there's the usual address search, which uses the Esri address geocoder thing. And that you can also search by town, which is something that's set up and added the third search by tile. So if you start to type in the tile number because somebody, you know what that is, but you don't know where it is, those will show up on the list. So yeah, that should be useful too.
I've had several people call me about, I'm missing this tile or that tile, and then that makes it a big help that they can just enter that tile directly into the download tool and get access to it.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate the feedback of these ideas because that really helps us meet the needs. But if we don't know there's a need, we can't add it. So if other things come up, let me or Carl or Alfredo know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, Alfredo?
No, that was it. I just wanted to call that out because I think that was an important change, and because the additional guidance I think is going to be helpful to a lot of people.
Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So we're going to have a longer conversation now about the annual update to the strategic plan. So as many of you remember, it doesn't seem that long ago, but it's been a year when we completed the first ever geospatial strategic plan. Per the statute, which is in front of you, we're supposed to have an annual update. And this, we are basically the structure is it's going to be a less vigorous, less focused on kind of the foundational themes and mission and vision statement, and more focus on an annual update. So essentially, between now and 2029, we'll have several annual updates. This is the first of that type. It's a prototype. I've made some specific choices. Hopefully, when you see the document, you will agree with the approach. I look forward to having any comments. But this conversation then is about the first iteration of this annual update. Next slide. So the three primary foci of this document are, first of all, what we've made progress on and achievements, where we're at in terms of meeting our objectives and activities, and then a list of operational goals. I'll remind you about the objectives and activities. That's that long list of 50 or so items that we had pulled out from the data collection process and historical information about things that we needed to address over the 5 years. So this is the first year in the next 4 years where we chip away at those objectives and activities. A draft is finished. We're doing internal review, and as soon as we get an update from the internal review process, we'll distribute it out for comments from the board, the committee. Next slide. So here's the table of contents for the annual update. It has many of the same components as the 5-year plan. The vision and mission statement is not changing. We have the same 5 strategic goals. We're going to have an achievement reporting, a data collection process that is similar but smaller scale than what I did for the larger plan. And then the main focus of this conversation today is about the annual goals and under-addressed objectives. Next slide, please. The vision and mission statements unchanged. Next. Same 5 strategic goals. Next. So real quick, these are some highlights from the year. We've made a lot of progress on the CAMA and parcel data. We now have an intake portal. Ashley Alfredo have worked on getting the parcel improvement grant program going. We've had our 2023 LiDAR and imagery and GIS data delivered. That involved a very extensive QA/QC process. We're now getting the services up and running, and we have an imagery hub site, which you just saw. We'll give a shout out to our partner C2 Eco for their data, Emily's data download site, which is really a force multiplier for everyone because it allows easy access to an awful lot of data in a pretty logical and simple way. Sarah Hurley has done yeoman's work on a GIS newsletter, and we've had a variety of improved communications with different stakeholders and users across both local government, the COGS, and also regional entities as well, in and outside the state. We've had several significant improvements in terms of hardware and software, more storage, a data science server. We have some remote sensing software, and then we have an additional terabyte of AGL storage. Alfredo, you want to mention anything else on that list? Oh, you're muted.
It pretty much sums it up. Oh, okay. Sorry.
No worries.
I think I stopped the share.
We now have after a slow start, we now have some trainings going. Carrie and Emily have been supporting monthly webinars, and then we also have a interagency GIS training going now. We now have this vegetation data set or data sets that will be available in the coming months. We did get a ESRI SAG award, and then finally all of us, but most especially Alfredo, did extensive outreach and networking with a wide variety of both local, state, and federal users and stakeholders. Next slide. So to evaluate our progress, this is basically the structure I've used. We have a variety of different inputs, including surveys and meetings. The idea is then to synthesize it, and then we're going to have these annual operational goals that you saw in the memo that we had previously submitted to you. Next slide, please. So Because this is an annual update and a smaller scope than the primary strategic plan, what we're really looking for here is critical changes that have come out in the past year and it may impact our 5-year plan. We have to provide input into this identification of these critical changes. We had an external survey, a stakeholder meeting, an interagency GIS user meeting, and then our own internal evaluation. Next slide, please. So the stakeholder outreach consisted of an external survey that closed on the middle of March, and this focused on barriers and data sets of importance. Plus, it had an open-ended section. We did not get that many surveys this time. We got about 37, and for the first round, we got well over 100. I tried extensive outreach to get responses. I think that people had less to complain about. That's what I'm hoping the answer is. But we did give people several opportunities to get involved with this survey. Next slide. Here's an example question. This one was about which data sets do you think would be most important for an authoritative GIS service? And we also had a similar kind of question for barriers to usage. Next slide. Here are two of the most interesting results. People did not feel that strongly about having the data available as a web service. And then they were not that concerned about knowing where to find data. That was interesting because the state data plan, which Scott Gall completed recently, that was a big item in the state data plan. People appeared to be frustrated or concerned that they couldn't find the data when they needed it. That's not a problem for the GIS community. Next slide. We also had a external stakeholder meeting at UConn Middlesex. Emily and Carrie kindly hosted that. It was a small affair of a little under 20 people, and we had several discussion topics to discuss the state of GIS in Connecticut. Next slide. Here's an example where we had little focus groups where people got a chance to talk with their colleagues from different domains about how our policies impacting their internal activities. We had another question on technology and had a spirited conversation about that. We'll have some notes on this in the appendix of the annual report. Next, please. We also had an interagency GIS user meeting, and we got some nice information out of that group. It was well received and well attended. About 80 people came to the first meeting. Next slide, Alfredo. One of the nice things we found out was we got a full list of 60 state agency use cases that identified what people are working on, or at least what they want to work on. And so I think this gives a nice path forward to providing training to users and stakeholders going forward. Next slide. I mentioned this objectives and activities list. Mark Hoover, who is not on the call, sent us a note about where did the annual goals come from, and it came from our internal review of this very long list, which isn't very PowerPoint friendly. It's 50 items long, but I wanted to show that we went through each and every one. We evaluated whether we had met the output goal, and if we didn't, why, and then we put a rough complete on it. So when you see the operational goals that we described, this is the process we went through to self-evaluate how we'd met the objectives and activities. Next slide. Here's our composite composite grading of our progress for the 5 primary objectives. And you can see that we range from a gentleman's C, as they used to say back in the Bush and Biden era, to A- in the broadened communication and engagement category. Overall, it's a B-. We had addressed at least partially almost every objective in that 50-item list. This is supposed to be over a 5-year goal. So presumably and hopefully we will cover many of the deficient or underachieving items that led to some of the scores not being without full marks. Next slide. So kind of giving you this is a kind of key points from the data collection process involving both our external users, internal review, and then external review of risks. First thing is that, to be honest, there's not that much new information, and that I think says a lot about the quality of the first effort. We also didn't have as much participation. But again, we had several sources of information to input to this process. One of the nice things we learned is that the GAC, our office, and the Geodata Portal all are more visible than they were. So people are becoming more aware of the institution of the GIS office and the GAC. A little surprisingly, in our the state level, most people had access to GIS software, and that was primarily ESRI. There was not much use of open source data. We've made a lot of progress on the parcel system, but there are still some concerns about how this all works out across the entire system when you integrate all the different components of the parcel and canvas system. The same data sets are still important: parcels, addresses, boundaries, imagery, though elevation was the one that seemed to be of more interest this time. GIS users are not worried about finding data or getting data in web services. I will reiterate that that's a key critical goal for our office because we think that's the easiest way to get data out to all users. One environmental risk or risk of the of an external nature is that the federal government is undergoing a lot of change right now, which could possibly impact funding in the future. That's something for us to keep track of. Users want training across an entire variety of things in the ecosystem. And then in terms of the actual document itself, there was only very minor tweaks to the objectives and activities. Basically, those were to focus the outputs a little more precisely to get a better response. So for this first round, we seem to have made good progress, and we have chipped away at the 5-year plan. Next slide, please. You received a memo from us regarding the annual update operational goals. Hopefully you've all reviewed that. I wanted to go through this list and then give you a chance to comment on that so that you can have your input into the annual updated document. I should say that you'll see of the items you'll see, these came from internal review, items that the staff thought were unaddressed, and then also from the 5 least addressed activities in that long objectives and activity item table that we've been working from since last year. Next, please. I won't read the issues and gaps, but I will kind of go through the highlights of each of these just to make sure that it's out there. You all have the memo, and then after this, you'll get a chance to comment on what you think is important and whether you think we're meeting our progress goals. So the first goal we have is to improve automation of the parcel and data cleaning process. The idea is to reduce the manual labor. Leah has worked long and hard on this over the last 2 years. With the new cycle, the amount of time inputted was much less, but it was still significant. We'd like to cut that down more using automation. I mentioned the risk about funding, uncertain funding at the state and federal level. One of the things we'd like to do is have a return on investment document about what the justification of investing in GIS data is, and finding out how that benefits our stakeholders. The next one is one of particular interest to me, but it comes from the Oxford flood and the Hawthorne fire. we don't really have a framework data set for emergency management resiliency, and that seems like an easy win to have a data set that we can put in packages and be available in emergencies rather than scrambling at the last minute to put together data. We also want to have a plan for improving water resource data. This is part of the USGS effort to upgrade the hydrography data. Connecticut has older, somewhat dated, somewhat spatially limited water data, and this would help address that. We're working on an interstate DCA plan with several of the New England states, which is ongoing. Hopefully, that will all be funded. We want to increase our interaction with small towns and nonprofits, and with that, Ashley Benitez is going to go out to all the 8 COGs and meet with them in person, and also hopefully we'll have smaller local organizations and towns involved in that process as well. We want to have an authoritative geocoder. We've heard a lot of need from state agencies about that. And unfortunately, ESRI does not provide a cost-effective method to do geocoding at the statewide scale. Small numbers, okay, but when you get to a million, it gets pretty. A million items to geocode is pretty prohibitive. Next slide, please. Sarah Hurley is working on getting a GitHub site to provide automation support for users. We want to continue to enhance our relationship with higher ed in a variety of areas. One of the objectives and activities that we didn't address is an intake process form, and that's something that should be a relatively easy list. Another one of the objectives and activities that was underachieved is we don't yet have a full answer for statewide ELA plan, but we want to have either a statewide ELA plan or access to open source GIS tools so we can have access, universal access of some kind for GIS data. Alfredo, you want to mention anything more of that?
Not at this time, but yeah, just to say that we are kind of doing an evaluation and trying to kind of figure out what does it look like, and we're chipping away and making slow progress, but we do have some kind of, I guess, let's call it time constraints that we have to operate under to kind of see if we can get something done in this realm. So, yeah.
And then under the under the improving data access and improving data quality, we have I'll kind of combine the last two, but we want to complete that acquisition of impervious data and start distributing it. We want to create services so that the towns, especially the smaller towns, can access that impervious covered data. We want to have a 3D data service, provide training on the 3D data, and then finally, just like the emergency management data set, find some groups of common themes like water resources, emergency management, resiliency, where we can create distribution packages of data that are easy for people to grab and start utilizing in their own work. That could either be through an online service or through actually download. But either way, that seems like an easy win for everyone to improve the access of the data we already have. Next slide. And so with that, I will pass this over to our council members here. This is the memo that you received. We've given you some of our critical operational goals, and we hope that you have some thoughts or comments for us regarding those operational goals in the coming year.
Yeah, go ahead, Stu.
So I had a thought, and you'll probably know where I'm going with this, Alfredo, because we've talked about it. But one of the things I was curious about from Deep's kind of diving into the parcel set, the deep end of the parcel set with the some of our permitting systems and other stuff that we've brought online recently. Is there any plans for the 2025 event, or maybe it's being pushed off for standardization of parcel IDing and potentially crosswalking from year to year, or is that going to be kind of a 26, 27 later down the line kind of thing?
My initial instinct is to say that that's going to be a later thing, especially after some conversations with Neil McGaffey from Mass GIS surrounding their efforts to create one. And kind of, to put it anecdotally, it was audacious for them to do it at all then, and and they also kind of mentioned that they they had some vendors that just did not comply with the request until the last very possible second, because kind of the frank statement that they made to Neil was, "We didn't think you'd be able to do this." It was one of those things. It wasn't until they had critical mass of enough people kind of doing the work to get it done that everybody finally complied. And so, is this a target? Yes. Is this something that we want to do? Absolutely. But I also have to acknowledge that this is going to have to be a slow burn, and and it is not going to be an easy fix, because it involves so many different stakeholders, and it involves them agreeing essentially unanimously on an approach, which, as any group, even a group of like-minded people, is going to be very, very difficult. So it's going to require a lot of education, especially of the assessors and all of that, into making them understand why it's so important. And then reporting back to groups like this, where like, okay, what do we want the framework to be? Let's really think this through, and make sure that we don't just like pull something out of thin air and then force it on people, and then find out like 5 years down the road that there are some major shortcomings. So we want to do this. I think it's important to do this. I think we should, because I think challenges in cases such as yours make it vitally, really highlight why we need it. But some of the challenges that we've had in trying to do some of like the kind of, I guess, patchwork ways of doing this have revealed why it's so important to do it foundationally.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other comments?
Yeah. Now's your time. This is, definitely, we are asking for feedback. We are asking for direction. Advisory council, please advise us.
I mean, I could talk more if no one else wants to talk.
Please do.
So this is more in relation to the emergency management piece. Specifically related to the Hawthorne fire, Deep had a pretty massive role in that, and that both from obviously from an office position, but also from the field position. We've had a bunch of reviews, AARs, things like that, in that. In the wrap up of everything that happened with Hawthorne. So, I don't know if if discussions have already happened, or how you're planning on approaching this, but pretty much, not just, the GIS part of Deep, but management, everybody's very interested in ways to streamline what we do for fire response.
Yeah, we'll be sure to kind of include you guys and all of the relevant stakeholders in this. I mean, I think they're, even from like the small interaction with the event that we had, we learned a lot of really good lessons about things that worked great, and things that maybe didn't work great, and even kind of learning from kind of outside things where, things we had done outside of that particular effort actually help that effort, in particular, like the parcels, the availability of statewide parcels, and being able to like map ambulances to the fire, save weeks of time in terms of like being able to acquire the data and kind of use it. So yes, we do want to make sure, like, we're not going to have any of these conversations in isolation. You know, as you guys have come to know, that is not how we prefer to operate. So we will definitely be reaching out to you, and we will definitely be reaching out to the folks in Dennis and everyone else to make sure that, like, as we start approaching this, we give people what they need, and we give a framework of like what they would need in terms of like mapping support and applications and full maps, and so that when these things arise, we don't have to waste a bunch of time gathering data.
Right. Cool.
And kind of, Stu, let me add too to that is there's the data part, which is sort of a bit mechanical, but there's a user side, which you're alluding to anyways. And I think there's an opportunity to have domain groups of like-minded users working together to kind of improve these groups of data. And even if we just have in some periodic discussions about what constitutes a basic data set or data group, I think that'll help a lot and make a much more functional set of usable data and opportunities for things when crises and emergencies really happen.
Absolutely.
Emily?
Yeah, I just have one that's come up in the past and I don't see it on the list, which are the standards that I know are in process by a number of committees, especially regarding parcel collection. So
Yep.
maybe they are inferred, but I don't see them specifically called out, and we definitely don't want to lose those.
Nope, that's very right. Yeah, we'll make sure we make that adjustment. Though, like you said, they are in the works. We just need to make sure that they're called out.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Anyone else? All right. Well, last but not least, we will move on to the other bit. I will let Sarah speak to the Geo Data Portal Publishing Guidelines draft that we also sent out to the group. And so I will let Sarah kind of speak to those and what our thought process was all about it.
Yeah, so I know we only have a few minutes left until 2, but at the beginning of the month, the council should have received our draft document on the guidance of publishing data to the geodata portal. The purpose of the document is to provide guidelines to those that are publishing data to the geodata portal. So this would include the state agencies and other partners that are publishing to the portal. And the document covers things like how to set up participation in the portal, data quality, metadata, tagging and categorizing your data, how you would retire data or handle sensitive information. So things like that. And we wanted to provide these written guidelines for the data being published to the portal so that we can maintain high quality data since we have data coming in from a lot of different groups. So we want to give the data publishers a clear and consistent process that they can follow when publishing to the portal. Can we go to the next slide? So hopefully the council got a chance to take a look through the document. We would like to hear feedback on the contents of the document. So I have some discussion questions here, just to get the ball rolling on where we could provide more clarity. If you could think of any other cases that the guidelines wouldn't address. If you have any feedback on how to make the document more helpful to people who are publishing the data, or how it can better support data quality and consistency and having long-term maintenance of the data. But also if you have any other feedback or anything came up, we would like to hear that as well.
Yeah, I will also say, if you don't have anything to kind of say right now, or you would prefer to kind of give feedback in private, then we're also open to that as well. I think the biggest thing we want is we've done a number of revisions on this document, and we're really looking for kind of guidance to make sure that we're on the right track and that it's saying the right things, and that when we go to do that kind of last push of revisions on this document, that we have taken into account everybody's feedback, and so that especially the stakeholders that are affected by this guidance have a chance to say, like, well, I don't agree with this, I do like that, that sort of thing, just to make sure that we're not causing an undue burden on those folks that are helping us contribute data. Emily, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple things, and can we go past 2? I think the meeting goes past 2, right?
Yeah, we can go past
Are we
2.
okay?
It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I did this, my homework at the last minute, like usual. So I'm sorry to give you feedback beforehand, but a couple
Totally
broader
okay.
things. One is like section 3.4 that talks about file format and size considerations. But I think there are a number of instances, like those of us that are sharing now, where we're actually serving in other platforms. So we're just sharing the item out. We're not necessarily asking the GIS office to store and publish and use resources. So maybe some separation of, like, there are different methods for different groups that have that capability versus those that need help creating services.
Yep, that's an important distinction.
And then the other thing, kind of after that, there was a lot of talk of the agency should or could or whatever, but I think we need to be really clear about who that is. It's as if it's written for state agencies, but I think if you're looking for other towns, universities, data sources, we want to just be really clear who that is, that this audience is, that that you're looking for, although it may likely mostly be state agencies, as those are the folks with authoritative data and resources, but just being really clear about that audience.
Understood. Yeah, Stu, go ahead.
So a couple of thoughts. The first one, obviously, date of data creation and date of data update is really important. But for larger data hosting entities like Deep or OPM, this is less of a critique of what you guys wrote and more of the framework in which we work. So ArcGIS Online has date created and date updated on their item details page of data sets. And that is one of the most misleading things that, like, anyone accessing our public data hubs looks at. It confuses people constantly. They're looking at the internal date as to when people have hosted feature layers to AGOL, as opposed to when the data was actually created or when it was last updated. So unless you're baking in the year or even the day of the data layer that you're working on into the title or something like that, people are looking at that before they look at the actual metadata or the item description. So it's just, I know you call it out, and it's absolutely important to have it in the metadata. I don't know a way to get around that, but people aren't reading the metadata. People are just looking at what AGOL kind of spits out, and it's a constant issue. So that was one piece. I don't know if that can be dealt with ever, but yeah, it's an issue. And then the other thought, in terms of things required for actual metadata stuff, kind of took a leaf, unsurprisingly, out of my predecessor's book, who worked with Emily on getting metadata added to CT Eco. One of the things that they did for some of the more esoteric data sets when it came to field names was actually kind of add a little bit of a blurb per field of what was included from data set to data set. That's not applicable to every data set, because some things are really obvious, like, this is global ID or this is what town is, but there are some fields that are part of certain data sets that are either extremely esoteric or jargony in the way they're named, or the alias for them doesn't even really do justice to what the user is reading. So it's kind of a tough thing to enforce, because that would be a lot of overhead in terms of work. But considering possibly adding some sort of descriptor per certain types of fields, at least for like fields that you're symbolizing off of, might be a useful consideration.
Yeah, that's important. Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts or feedback on the publishing guidelines? And once again, don't feel like you have to make those comments here. If you prefer to give them to us directly, please feel free to reach out. All right. I guess with that, we'll open it up for public comment. So if anyone that is not a council member would have something to say or comment on any of the things that were discussed in the meeting today, now's a good time. Raise your hand and we will allow you to speak. All right. Well, I guess since nobody's saying anything and jumping at the chance, then we will use this opportunity to adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And we do anticipate that the next one will be in June, last Thursday, kind of as usual. Once again, if any of the council members have any conflicts or issues, please let us know as soon as you can so that we can kind of accommodate and make sure that we have successful meetings. One thing that we are teasing around the idea of is the possibility of an in-person meeting for this group. So that is a thing that we're interested in doing. So like, once again, if you would like to reach out and kind of see if that is a thing that you would be willing to participate in, just let us know. And we would like to schedule one of the forthcoming meetings as an in-person meeting, just so, you know, we can experiment with a slightly different dynamic, and then maybe we can kind of going forward do that once or twice a year, and have virtual meetings and in-person meetings as we can. All right, and with that, thank you so much, and we'll wrap it up. Thank you all, and have a good long weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.